Thank you for allowing me to join your community of friends and family. And it's very interesting to hearing what you said just a moment ago about the importance of chewing and the importance of applying these macrobiotic principles. And I started macrobiotics when I was 13. And I came from a family that wasn't eating that well. So I was very challenged as a teenager because my brothers and sisters, they weren't eating this way. But after having bronchitis, everyone can hear me okay? I hear him very well, great. So, yeah, for me, my entry to this whole macrobiotic world was really, really kind of a fluke. I had bronchitis when I was 13, and my mum gave me an option to go and see the doctors or go and see a macrobiotic guy who was living in our basement flat. And actually, he was from Israel as well. And he recovered from cancer, and he's one of Bill Tara's first students in the East West Centre in London.
Do you remember who that was?
It was David Passes. I don't know if you ever met him. He passed away about 10 years ago. But at the time, when he came to see Bill Tara said, "You have no hope." And then he met Bill Tara, Mitchell Cushy as well, and said, "What you have is so severe, I don't know if you're going to make a few months." But Bill Tara and Renee, who was the first wife of Bill Tara, they took him in as a project because they wanted to prove that macrobiotic works. So they took him in, and they were doing the compresses and doing all the special remedies for him. And he was literally in pain for 2.5 years and staying in their house, in the room. But slowly he got better and he became healthier. But he came from a wealthy family, but he was looked after by nannies. And he basically ate whatever he wanted. So he just ate sweets. So from the very young age until he got sick, he was just eating sweets. And then his body just fell apart, and he was searching for a solution, going around London looking for a way to get better. And luckily, Bill Tara just opened the centre in London, and he was looking for people to come to prove that macrobiotic has a value. And but after 2.5 years, he got better. And then Bill Tara said, "Now you need to separate from your family for a little bit, go and live in the nature, eat really simple, exercise, meditate." And basically that's what he did. And so from there, I'm Cornish, I come from Cornwall. And we used to go visit Cornwall quite often. And this is how my parents met David Passes. And he was looking to reconnect with his family, but he was looking for somewhere to stay in London. So we had a huge house, and we had a basement flat. And he came there and stayed. So this led, and at the same time, I started to have bronchitis very strong. Because as a kid, I was actually brought up vegan. And but slowly when I went to school, I started to eat more dairy products. And in England, there's so much temptation, takeaways and junk food. And when I started to eat all these dairy products, it had a really bad effect on my lungs and my health. And my mum didn't know how to help me. So meeting David was like a godsend. And because he was there, I decided to try macrobiotics for 10 days. So I'd just go to his place and eat with him. And he would explain all the principles of macrobiotics in a very simple way. I didn't know who Michio Kushi was, or Georgia Shower, or I didn't know anything about macrobiotics. He just presented me with these very simple ideas of you are what you eat, and being mindful, and so it really triggered in me. So over the 10 days of eating this way, I kind of felt amazing, because I was very shy at school, and I had kind of I was kind of small and inwards a little bit. So after 1 week, I felt amazing, like I never felt before. And it just sparked this kind of interest in knowing, like, okay, I want to do this. This is something I want to continue with. And at the time, you get these work experiences at school where you can go for like 2 weeks and work in a bank or an office, and it's organized by the school. And you can choose as well where you'd like to work for 2 weeks to get experience. So I said, I want to go to the Macrobiotic restaurant in London and work there. And the teacher was like, what is Macrobiotics? So I wrote to Jerry, who was the head manager, and Simon Brown. And I said, can I come and work for 2 weeks? And literally in 1 week, they said, yes, you can come. And so I dived in the whole world of macrobiotics, being in the center, being in the restaurant. And I was blown away about the creativity and the energy that everyone had in the center. And I don't know if some of you you're very new, but the center was quite amazing. It had a restaurant, a bookshop, had a Kushi Institute, and then it had a shiatsu school, and a Clear Spring, which is now called it's called Clear Spring, the wholesalers. They do all the products in England, but that used to be a shop. So it was an amazing community, and from there I kind of trained in different departments. So I went doing the desserts. They had about 20 different desserts. We have like couscous cake and amazaki with almonds, and then toffee cheesecake, and it was an amazing variety of desserts. And then I did the salads. They had a salad bar, and then the main meal, which was like the main meal, would be completely different every day. So it'd be like and also they'd have different chefs. So there'd be like a French chef coming, or Italian chef. So they were giving their flair of Italian style cooking with the macrobiotic ingredients. So this is what really sparked my interest in food and eating well. And I know that when you're coming from a healing stage, you have to be very careful of what you can eat. And usually when you're given a selection of ingredients, it's very hard to think, okay, what can I get? What can I do with this? And how can I be creative? How can I get that creative flair going? Because in our creativity, this is where we find our true self. Because we are born to be creative. If you look at all the arts and all the music and all the fashion around the world, human beings have the innate beings to be creative, whatever it is that we like to do. And with the macrobiotic ingredients, there's always room for more creativity. And we see that, if you've been following macrobiotic classes and listening to different teachers, you can see how everyone has their own style, their own approach, adding something new to the conversation of macrobiotics. So You all hearing me? Okay. So, are you all very new to macrobiotics, or you've been doing a long time practice?
Anybody want to respond?
Anyone would like to share?
You could ask two different questions and ask those who have been at more than 10 years to raise their hand. Those who have been at less than 2 months, raise their hands. That way you'll find out it's a mixed group.
I'm going to put it on a wide view because I can only see a few people.
Practicing
Can I
for
encourage
18
people
years.
can I encourage people to open up your videos so we can see you? Ham David, Arlene Townsend, anybody? Sandy, Joanne, Victoria, Audrey, Jan.
I'm having trouble finding the video to open.
Bottom left corner.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself, but I can't find the video. I'm
Right
sorry.
next to it is stop video. Never mind.
Okay.
When I left, I worked in the restaurant for 2.5 years as an apprenticeship, and from there I started to cook for people because they come to the restaurant and say, "Can you cook for the dinner party? Can you cook for?" So I ended up cooking for a lot of celebrities, and I was making more money than in the restaurant. So like one day, I'd earn in 1 week. So that kind of got me into it. And then I was working with a lot of teachers who'd have consultations, and then they would say, "Can you come and cook?" But a lot of the times, I would go and meet people, and they gave up on macrobiotics. They had everything perfect in their kitchen. They'd have the pots. They would go out and buy everything, and then for some reason, they just gave up. And I always asked, like, why do people give up? What was the thing that triggered in them? And sometimes it's being overwhelmed, because you can see even in this world, people are very overwhelmed. You can see the politics, you can see the social media. We are bombarded with so many ideas and thoughts. And when macrobiotic gets mixed into that idea as well, sometimes people are jumping from diet to diet, or they're trying this or they're trying that, and they don't give it a fair go. Maybe they don't have the time to cook, or they don't have the support network around them. So it's very important to have that support network and have that time for yourself to give yourself that breathing space to find that creativity. And in the beginning, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. In the beginning, you're going to sometimes you're going to burn the rice, and then you're going to get fed up. Like, you have to keep going and then keep trying. So with every, because it is a practice, and even the pros are still practicing. Even Michio Kushi, and you know for yourself that we're all very human, and we're all if we have that right environment around us. So this is what inspired me to go to different centers in Europe. So after I left the restaurant and did a lot of work, I decided to experience what other people experience in different countries. So I ended up going to Switzerland, to Ireland, to Belgium, to Poland, to Ibiza, Spain, and then America. So, and then I realized that everybody has a different, slightly different approach, but there was a common theme. And I think when I remember meeting Aveline Kushi at the East West Center, and she's like saying, it's about gratitude. It's about all this macrobiotic thing is about gratitude, and it just kind of stuck with me. That if you look at the Japanese culture, they're so grateful. They always say it, bowing and Thank you, thank you, thank you. That when we embrace our gratitude, we're in the right place. And macrobiotic cooking and the whole practice is really about gratitude, giving great gratitude to ourselves, nurturing ourselves. And you know that when you nurture yourself, you feel great, and then you feel inspired to help others. And if you're not feeling great in yourself, it's very hard to kind of inspire someone else. So gratitude is the key thing, because I've seen some people who are also dying and they have cancer and they kind of give up. And I always say, like, you know, hang in there. Look at all the things you can be grateful for, because sometimes it's very hard to get into being grateful for the food straight in the beginning, and, you know, chewing and doing all these things. But once you start to add the gratitude in there with it, then it all comes alive and it all starts to feel amazing. And then you get people who like really want to learn, like, I really want to learn everything about macrobiotics and I want to practice and I'm getting excited. So excitement, being excited, being creative, expressing your gratitude, this is something which I've seen is a common theme, because macrobiotics, in the community of macrobiotics, people like to argue a lot. They have different debates. Should I have olive oil? Should I have coconut oil? Am I allowed eggs? Am I allowed to eat fish? And there's lots of debates around these things. But when we know that we have a personal choice, and that the choice that we make because we feel that it's the right choice. That we don't follow macrobiotics because it's someone following on our back, telling us what to do, and this is, you have to do it like this. All these principles, all these things are there to practice. And then I remember George Shower in one of his interviews, he was saying, well, what will I experience from this 10-day brown rice? And he said, I don't know. He said, practice it and come and tell me. So he was always saying, find out for yourself. I'm just giving you some ideas, but you practice it and then see what works for you, what resonates with you. And for each person, like when I was, some things take time to click. You know, in Macrobiotics, they say everything changes. And I thought about that, but then I kind of like, it's such a big idea, everything changes. Or 1 grain, 10,000 grains. But when you go through life and you start to go through different things, you start to think, oh, now I understand what that means. But in the beginning, sometimes we hear things and it doesn't kind of go in. And I think it's always coming back to that gratitude. Or if we can always come back. And I had an interview with Michio Kushi in 2008. And this was a time when he had his cancer and he had a lot of challenges in his life. He just got married as well. And but he's such an amazing guy to speak to, and you can feel his energy and his character and his determination to share this message. And he says, one last thing he says, do not criticize. Do not criticize anyone. Everyone is going through their own journey and their own learning process and their own experiences. And it's easy to get frustrated by looking at what other people are doing. Like, I remember one guy saying, outside the East West Centre, telling off a mother for giving a child banana. Like, do not give a child banana. And sometimes if we go to extreme with our macrobiotic things, then we can put people off. So the idea is to inspire people to come in to macrobiotics and explore and flirt with macrobiotics, and people are coming from different directions. Some people are coming through the healing process. Some people are coming because they heard something on the radio or the TV. So you'd be surprised the different avenues of how people came to find macrobiotics and it to be a part of their life unfolding. So it's a very unfolding process, and this class was kind of about creative cooking. And how many of you have been creative in the kitchen or exploring their creativity? I can't see the screens, but some of them are blank. So, there was another story I wanted to tell you, that when I was doing the desserts at the East West Centre, I was an apprenticeship, learning everything. And then the head chef, the chef that was doing the desserts, a lady, she all of a sudden didn't turn up. And I was left to make all these desserts on my own. I just learned, like, I didn't learn all of them, but I was like, okay. I was forced to kind of make all these 30 different desserts in like 3-4 hours. So it was a huge challenge. So I was like, okay, tasting, moving. And then when I was in the restaurant, they didn't really, they taught you things, but it wasn't from recipe. It was from like judging for yourself. So like, okay, that much soy sauce, and then you taste it, and it's like, okay, that tastes good. That's correct. So it was all about just feeling the food and smelling the food. And one thing that I say to people is that if you get an ingredient like a carrot, because you've learned about the cooking styles, from yin to yang, you all learn these things, from steaming and boiling, blanching, and then baking, frying. So if you get any ingredient, what I like to do is to think 10 things that you can do with a carrot. So you can grate it, you can fry the carrot, you can have carrot tempura, you can make a carrot cake, dessert from it, you can do something savory with it. So when it comes to looking at what you've got in your kitchen, maybe you need to use something up, is to kind of think about the cooking styles and how many things you could make. The same with like a grain, like millet. You can make into a burger, you can make into dessert. And so this is one way of kind of triggering that creative thought, is to, in the kitchen, when you get kind of like a little bit bored or you don't know what to do, then just think about all these things, because we get stimulus from actually seeing pictures of food. This is why Instagram is so popular. And we go and see the magazines and we're like, oh, that looks delicious. And then you want to go, you want to create that. You want to go home and go, oh, I want to make this. And a lot of people that I go and teach, they want healthy versions of what they usually eat. So they want to eat something like, well, fish and chips. Make me a healthy version of fish and chips. So then it's like, okay. So then this creates, and this is where the creativity is coming from in macrobiotics, is that we all have our cultural foods that we have, like with your grandparents, and you've got the traditions throughout the year, and you have certain foods. So it's just seeing how you can make like a healthy version of that soup. And here in Poland, they're very, very big on beetroot. They have a lot of beetroot and buckwheat. And then when I looked at the Polish cuisine, it's actually quite healthy. If you took away the meat and the dairy and the sugar, they eat quite macrobiotically. And so when you go back and you look at those traditional recipes, and you think maybe I can take out some of the fat, and we can take some of the replace something. So and also with macrobiotics, it's constantly evolving. I just learned recently that tempeh wasn't part of the original macrobiotic menu since it started like in the 1970s. The guy who wrote the book of tempeh, and there's this guy from Indonesia who came from to LA, and he met Michikushi, and they said that tempeh is like, it's really great protein. And then all the macros thought it was too yin. So like, but then they realized that if you cook it with cooked tempeh with soya sauce and ginger, that actually kind of yangizes it and makes it more digestible. And then tempeh, any macrobiotic book or thing you see, that a lot of people use tempeh. So, and even like chia seeds, you know, chia seeds, everyone played with some chia seeds. When I didn't know what chia seeds was when I was in the East West Centre. So now chia seeds is like popular, you know, you see all the chia desserts and everything. And so, believe it or not, there's always something new to learn. Like I think there were like 1,000 grains, but because we, over evolution, we only selected a few grains like rice, wheat, oats. And now they're starting to come out with new grains like red millet, which I saw in a health food shop. I was like, wow, I've never seen red millet before. And then it kind of like, what could you do with red millet? So there's always in the kitchen department, there's always new things to learn and create and bring in. And I love what I do. It's something which I realize, because when I look at all the macro teachers, I always think they're young, but I realize that they're getting on. As I get on, they're getting on as well. And but it's so amazing to still have so many amazing teachers still around and still teaching and sharing. And so anyone has any questions that you'd like to express? You can turn on your microphone if you want. Any questions?
Yes, perhaps. I think what's difficult for me is I tend, after all these years, to make the same things over and over.
Yes.
And I know it's part of being creative and things like that, but I do tend to make the same things.
Yes.
And also I cook for my husband, so I wind up eating more pasta and vegetarian pizzas that I want to.
Yes.
Beans, he doesn't do well with beans. That's the problem, and I do.
Yes. I think men and women, they need slightly different kind of foods. And when I started to cook for bigger groups, like I used to do some summer camps or some big events, there were certain people that they couldn't eat certain foods. You'd always have someone who was allergic to something, whether it's garlic, onions, beans. But I think it's with, I remember one teacher was saying that for men, it's kind of triple cooking. So like when you cook the beans and then you fry some carrots and you combine them together and you make a burger and then you cook again, then, because what happens is that when the more whole a food is, the faster it goes through your system. so it goes through quickly, like whole grains, whole vegetables. But when we add cooking styles to it and we compress it a little bit, because we're making that with raw food and with meat. The thing with meat, it stays in your intestines a long time, so it gives you that sense of being full. But when you're applying like a more of a vegan macrobiotic kind of lifestyle, we tend to need that density, especially men. So this is why a lot of people eat bread. Like a lot of people eat bread because it's a substitute for meat, because we're missing that dense feeling. But then having too much bread or too much cookies can cause another problem as well. So it's all about how, but I notice with men that if you do kind of combined cooking, and then maybe adding fewer beans and then building up. So not adding too much beans at the start, maybe doing a rice burger and then mashing the beans in with that and then frying some onions, carrots, and then adding some flavors that maybe a little paprika. So it's about triggering the appetite, and if someone's going to eat something anyway, it's better if we do more of a healthier version and find healthier things, because we are all transitioning. It's very hard to maintain a very simple diet for so long that we crave the textures. And this is why the 5 elements are really important in macrobiotics, to kind of bring those in the dish, because we are bringing in the plate, but also we can bring the elements within the dish itself. And one thing that I've been experimenting with, I don't know if you know, congee. Everyone know congee? It's a Chinese cooked rice. They cook it for like 3 hours. But you can do it in a pressure cooker. It only takes maybe half an hour in the pressure cooker. And congee is really amazing, because the whole macrobiotics has gone towards a bowl. At first, it used to be a plate. And everyone was like, plate. And now you even have the word macro bowl, which they say in restaurants, a macro bowl. And the thing, I was thinking about the word bowl, because I realized that people like bowls, because if you're watching TV, you have your food in a bowl. If you have it on a plate, it's all going to go everywhere. So you have like these Buddha bowls, the macro bowls, and it's basically what's on a plate, but in a bowl. But what I like about congee is that sometimes we have too much grain, but with a congee, we are having a little grain, but we're cooking it a long time. And then you can add things to it. So usually you add shiitake, kombu. You can add turmeric if you want to make it go yellow. And you can use black rice if you want that kind of effect. And then you can add a little bit of coconut milk if you want. And then you can add things on top of it. So you can add crunchy seeds, some rocket, some pickles. So you can make a congee bowl, which has all the elements into it. And this is really fun. And I noticed when I cook for people on our retreat, when they're new to it, when I make this congee bowl, it feels really satisfying and very nurturing. And they're getting, because congee was used in different ways to heal different elements. So you can put aduki beans in there. You can mix grains together. So you can do millet, red rice, quinoa. So there's a whole world to discover through just doing congee. And so finding what works for you and your husband, sometimes you have to kind of see how you can bring in new elements into the dish. and then trying out, and then, I always get people that, you always have these people that don't like things. They say, I don't like aduki beans. I never have aduki beans. And then I make something with aduki beans and they eat it and they go, that had aduki beans in it. So, really? Wow. So usually people hang on to a concept of what they don't like. When children, they don't like something. And then when they have it in a different way and it's presented to them differently, they're like, oh, this is nice. So we all have this conditioning of what we associate with what we like from childhood, things we don't like. And my father-in-law, he doesn't like brown rice. And I said to him, why don't you like rice? It's delicious. And he said, when I went to school, they forced me to have brown rice soup because they'd make this milky rice soup at school and we had to eat it. And ever since, he just didn't want to eat brown rice. He didn't want to eat rice. So we all have these little food stories of, what we don't like. So this is why trying things in a different way is really fun. Like taking millet and then think, what could you make with millet? Maybe you can all share something. What would you make with millet?
My favorite thing is millet with onion and cauliflower, and then using the emergent blender to make it like a mashed potato.
Yeah. And great. Anyone else?
I like millet as a crust for a pie and then just put all sorts of vegetables inside.
Mm.
Any sweet dishes?
Or Hazel. Hazel used to make a dessert. Hazel, where are you? She used to make a dessert with millet.
In East West Centre, we used to make a millet.
I have something. One of the first things I learned, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So when I first started learning about macrobiotics, which was really just by chance because a person on the street stopped me. She wanted to open up a class and she didn't have many people. So she just stopped me and said, will you come in? But one of the things she taught was to cook millet and then put sliced kiwi on top with, I think, a little bit of rice syrup or something.
Yes.
Put it in the oven. And it was very tasty. It was one of the first things. We had 5 classes and that was one of the things we learned.
Yes.
So I've done that since with different fruits.
Millet is fantastic with
Yeah, and you mix a little bit of rice syrup in with the millet, but just a little bit.
Yeah.
And
millet is so amazing that you put something with it and it kind of transforms it because it's like a base. It just brings out the sweetness. Mm-hmm. And the one way I make it is for breakfast. Sometimes I just cook it and then I put a little bit of orange zest into it. And then just put maybe a little bit of coconut oil and salt. And but I like it with just to make it creamy when it gets to that time where it kind of opens up. It gets kind of nutty, but then it kind of just gets really soft. And then it's delicious on a cold day. But this is talking about food kind of starts getting our creative juices going. So, sometimes when we explain to non-macro people that what we like, they're like, you're crazy. Is this what you like? But it's an acquired taste. And then we start to get used to the taste. And then we start to experiment and be creative. And this is why I love macrobiotics. I always say that, I say that everyone is macrobiotic because we have this equilibrium in us. There's, when you see someone who's drinking alcohol and they're walking in the street, the equilibrium is keeping them balanced. And I always say that people are macrobiotics, but they don't know yet. But once they start learning about it, then they say, oh, my body, I've been trying to balance myself all my life, but I was going to extremes. I didn't have the tools to create balance in my life. And once you give them a little bit of wisdom, they start to say, oh yeah, I can actually start walking and feel great. Oh, this feels great. This feels groovy. And I had one doctor in Poland, and he wanted just 3 pieces of advice. He said, I don't want to know about macrobiotics. I don't want to know what you do. Just give me 3 advices. And so I said, cut out sugar, eat more grains and vegetables, and do a keto, because he was overweight a little bit. So I said, just do these 3 things. And then after a year, I didn't see him at all. And then I come back and he looks amazing. And he said, I did exactly what you said. I cut out sugar, I ate more vegetables and grains, and I did a keto. And I said, wow. So sometimes people just need a little bit of, sometimes if you give them too much stuff, it kind of like overwhelms them. But if you give them something they can do, like, okay, I want to do this, just make these small changes. And then from there, you can kind of build on and integrate more things as you go along. So I don't know how it was for you in your life. Did you take a huge step, or was it a very gradual process? Anyone would like to share something?
For me, I started to work at a health food store. I did bookkeeping, and this was 40 years ago. And I was a heavy meat, dairy, sugar eater, a very traditional Jewish diet, all home cooked food though. And I saw their plates and I never even heard of anything they were eating, but I saw how healthy they were. And I also saw that there was a macrobiotic. I live in Baltimore. There was a Macrobiotic Institute, and people with cancer were coming and healing and looking wonderful. So overnight, I did it. I had a counseling with Murray Snyder. I don't know if anybody remembers him.
I remember him, yeah.
Yes. And overnight, I became macrobiotic, and I lost a lot of friends and people. 40 years ago, it wasn't like today where people hear of healthier foods. So I lost family. People ribbed me for years, and my own family was not happy. It was very difficult. I don't know how I did it, but I did it, and I saw a lot of changes in my own health. It was incredible.
I think it's amazing to hear these stories, because the other thing I did was create, when I finished all my things, when the internet started, I created a guide, a website guide called the Macrobiotic Guide. And I was cooking for someone who had a really healthy company. They were doing spirulina and stuff. And they said, why don't you have a website? And I said, what is internet? I don't know what internet is. And this was before Google and Yahoo and Facebook. And I had no idea what to do with the website. They brought me the name, Macrobiotics.co.uk. So then he said, you either make it a website about yourself, or you make it as a guide or community. So I was really interested to know, because I heard that there was lots of macrobiotic people around the world. And I heard about different centers from magazines and East-West Journal, things like that. But I didn't know all the teachers from America. I knew some of the visiting teachers, but I didn't know the whole spectrum of their stories and their journeys. So when I had the guide, it went very quick overnight, which in 1 month I had like 1,000 subscribers. And I had to learn everything myself, how to do the website, how to upload, how to send email. And it was actually before, it was the dial-up, remember the dial-up system? It was really slow, uploading a page, getting your email. And I would do a few hours every week, and it would kind of grow and grow and grow. And then I was linking teachers together. I was bringing some teachers that went away from macrobiotics, I said, come back, you know, there's some discussion around macrobiotics. And so there was a great learning for me, because I started to see and hear different stories from people from all around the world of how maybe macrobiotics became a problem for them, or macrobiotics helped them. So it was kind of, and then I opened a forum, so allowing people to just express kindly. You know, there were people that were kind of getting into being angry in this person or that teacher or whatever. I really trying to bring together more of a kindness in the macrobiotic community and say, look, everyone is different. We have different approaches, but we need to find our common. And if macrobiotics is to grow out around us and around the world through the nourishment and through the good-heartedness of people, then we have to somehow embrace and encourage people to come back to the center. Because as you know, in doing the palm healing or doing the massage or doing yoga, they always say about the center, your hara, your belly. So when we come back to the center, we feel more at peace. We feel more centered with ourselves. When we get into our head, we start analyzing things and we start fighting with people. You know, you see all these election things in America. It's like it's fighting, and you know, it's really sad because some people have friends which vote differently to them, and they're like unfriending them because they have a different view. And we need to, in this world now, we need so much to connect with our heart spirit and ourselves, and we need to connect with people in a way that we're more human. And I think this is such an amazing way of connecting through social media, that we can all express and share and communicate with each other and realize and celebrate our similarities, but also celebrate our differences. That people are different, but also we have that basic similarity, which is to do with peace, to do with coming to your center, with the gratitude. And once I learned that there were communities in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and they were pioneering all these macrobiotic things, you know, they had struggles as well. There were centers when they had to raise money and make these centers happen. And then it happened, and you know, through some miracle, things started to grow in America with macrobiotics, like you said, in the Cuisine Institute, and people were coming, recovering. So I think it's always going to be the spirit of people that bring macrobiotics together out there. It's your spirit as an individual and as a collective. It's going to start to reach out to more and more people. And the generations will come and go, but the macrobiotic is kind of unleashed itself from being this very small thing to now everywhere I go. Like I cooked for Madonna, I cooked for Sting, and a lot of celebrities. But one thing I realized, that I was actually very nervous to actually cook for them. But when I met them and I spoke to them, I realized that they're very human, that we have an image that we see on the TV of this person. But when you meet them and they connect. And then I had an opportunity to go to Dubai and cook for this youngest billionaire. And she was so stressed because she was building this island. And her father was richer than her. She was a billionaire, the youngest billionaire, but she had to impress her father that she was building this island. So she became stressed. So, and then me and my wife, we went out there for 10 days, and she had so much luxury, like mind-boggling luxury, but she didn't have her health and her peace and her strength. And I said, people that have this, they're the real billionaires. You know, and I always think that it's the poor billionaires that we all think that we want this wealth, but actually when you have it, it's so much stress because you're overwhelmed with so much. You're overwhelmed with people taking away your things. You're overwhelmed of what to do with it all, and having to compete. There's a whole hierarchy. But after 10 days, she started to open up, and she cried, and she started to really connect with the food, and and then she invited all these wealthy people, and they came in their limousines, and they were coming, and I made all this amazing food. And you know what, the discussion at the end, we were all like showing off. At the end of the night, everyone was talking about love, and they're going, yeah, I achieved so much in my life. I built all these hotels, I built all these things. And they said, but love is the most important thing. Like, this is what is the most important thing. People don't realize. And I was like, wow, it's so touching, because you look at these people and you think they kind of made it, but actually they're like saying, no, it's the other way. What you're looking for is you have it. And a lot of people that I work for that were very well known, but also had cancer and were dying, they all said to me, like, I wish I did this when I was younger. I wish I knew about this when I was younger, but no one taught me. And I was like, wow. So it's kind of very touching for each person I work with. Hearing their story and their journey is such an inspiration. And it makes you want to connect even more. It makes you want to kind of like, what I'm doing has a bigger purpose. I may be in my kitchen, I may be doing my little thing, but there's a bigger expression of what we're doing here, as well as our little individual world, what we're doing. And this is why I feel very fascinating, the whole vision and transformation, because it is a very individual journey. Each one of you has a very individual experience and journey, and you have your limitations, but we all have this innate need to enjoy, and being creative in cooking. This is one way we can express our joy for our own selves and our family and our friends. And also, you make macrobiotics sexy, make macrobiotic more fun. So this is what I've been experiencing, and it's amazing to see all of you here, and you're all kind of trying to learn and carve out and learn your way through macrobiotics and practice this. So I just encourage you to keep practicing. And Audrey is one. Wait, I'm just reading. Okay. So
Maybe it's so inspiring to listen to you. It's really uplifting. I appreciate so much. I like your demeanor and your calm and your stories. It's really a pleasure.
Well, this year has been amazing, because it's the first year we usually do retreats in Ibiza,
Right.
but we haven't been able to go to Ibiza at all. It's been complete lockdown.
Do you remember we met in Ibiza?
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Yeah. We were cooking for Bebe and Yitzhak, and then you came as we were
Yes.
leaving.
I think we just crossed paths.
Yeah.
And then I met you at the One World camp, maybe 10, 20 years ago, I think. It's a long time. But you guys are amazing, because you haven't changed since. You look so well. You're exactly as I remember you. But I know that I've seen that you did a lot of traveling. I remember hearing all your adventures of going around to different places. And I think you're really embracing everyone, and you're really kind of opening your hearts and giving a lot.
Thank you.
So it's beautiful to see.
Well, thank you again. Thank you so much.
And I remember Michikushi. You all remember Michikushi? He always said, when he did his first event, and he said there was only 2 people that came, and the organizer said, "Do you want to continue?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Even if one person comes, I'm gonna show up." So if you just keep showing up, people will come slowly, and then it will build, and it will have its own shape, and it has its own journey. So it's amazing that you're providing such a space for everyone to come together and express. And I love this Zoom thing. Zoom is very new to us. I mean, we did it one-to-one, but having this group Zooms is a great
Jeannie,
service.
many thanks again, and
Yes.
a pleasure to have you.